Hey guys, welcome back to the Third Hour podcast where we talk about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and church culture and the real topics within it. My name is Mimi Bascom. I'm your host. I'm joined by my co-host Batchlor, who just got engaged. You know I'm going to bring it up.
I need to. I'm hyped.
Congratulations.
Appreciate
We're
you.
so excited for you. If you haven't seen the proposal video, it's on his page and it's so good. We're excited to have you. And we have a very special guest. I've been following this page forever, even back when it was Provo stats. Now it's Utah stats.
You remember.
I do, of course. And so we have Jacob, who is the creator of Utah stats. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here.
We're so excited to have you. Why don't you tell everyone just a little bit about yourself first?
Yeah. So I'm a psychology major at BYU. I'm about to graduate here this fall. I just need one more credit. I'm actually trying to do my capstone. I'm aiming to be a TA for a psych stats class. So if there are any psychology majors listening, maybe I'll join you for your stats class here this fall. We'll see, right? But and then I come from Idaho originally, and then I came to BYU for school. And in 2020, I served a mission in Salt Lake City from 2018 to 2020.
Oh, nice.
I met my wife and married her in 2021. She was at Utah State at the time, and we met and did the long distance thing for a little bit, and then got married and moved. And she was accepted and transferred down to BYU.
Nice.
And,
Wait, and how did you guys meet?
Yeah. So I actually matched with her friend on mutual.
Her friend?
I did. Yeah. Her friend since I think they were in Sunbeams together in their ward.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so I matched with her, and then we went on a date, and we just wanted to be friends, right? It was fine. And she said, you know what? I have a friend that I think you would really like, right? And so she said, however, she's at Utah State. She's in Logan. And at the time I was doing school online because it was COVID, and I was up in Idaho at home. And I was going to Logan anyway, actually, coincidentally, because I was doing some engagement photos for a friend. I used to do photography on the side a little bit.
Oh,
and
cool.
So I was going down there, and I said, perfect, I'll be there in 2 weeks anyway. So yeah, I'll go take her out. And so I took her out, and then I stayed an extra day, and I decided to come back down the next week, and kept finding excuses to come down and see her, and it worked out. So yeah.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Shout out to that friend though.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. And and then she actually got married a little bit later as well. She had given up hope in dating, and I said, okay, just don't uninstall mutual, just keep grinding, right? And she's like, but I hate it so much. And then she matched with a guy, and then she got married. So yeah.
Oh my gosh. Good.
So,
I'm so happy for her.
Yeah.
That's a true girl's girl.
Yeah.
She deserves all the love.
Yes. She actually did the flowers for our wedding because she owned a flower side business. And so she was there and everything like that. So it was great.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
awesome.
Wait, that is such a fun story. It's
That
like
is nice.
mutual adjacent. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not like directly mutual.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I tell everyone. We met through mutual, but not on mutual, right? Yeah. She, I think she had the app when we went on our first date, but she hadn't created a profile yet. And so I was like, oh shoot, I got to move fast. I like this girl, I know that if she starts getting matches, like all these other guys are going to, shove me out, right? So too far away to do anything about it, right? So,
Oh my gosh, that's so
My
real.
dude, that's what you gotta do. My boy is locked in.
and on that grind, man.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay, so tell us too, how you created Utah stats. What's the whole origin story?
Yeah. So the whole origin story, it started with my studies. So as a psychology major, right, we read a lot about studies which have been done about people and their views and about, different things, right? And it was really, really interesting to me, right? But there are a lot of things that I still had questions about and was curious about. We used Qualtrics, the data analytics software, for some assignments, and I thought, this is kind of cool. You can just create these surveys and do super in-depth analyses on this. And I had a license through it, through BYU, right? And so I said, I could create a survey, that'd be kind of cool, right? And I had just taken the class at BYU called, I think it's called Healthy Sexuality in Marriage, right? I took that with my wife for our first year of marriage. Awesome class. And I was like, I'm curious about, what people think about these different things within the church, right? And so my first survey, before I even had made a page was about sexuality and views and perceptions towards what is okay before marriage, what is not, and within marriage, what is okay and what is not, right? And I just did that as a personal thing. I didn't ever post anything, but I had people who responded and were like, hey, I kind of want those results, like I'm curious, right? This is interesting, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought, I wonder if I could do something that was a little bit more, I guess more applicable to a lot of people, right? Things that everyone could, relate to, right? And so I decided to create a new survey that, measured these more broad things, dating and school and, and other things. And then I just created the page. I printed out hundreds and hundreds of little flyers and QR codes around BYU and started passing them out in the library before and after classes and in the lunchrooms. And then I just slowly grew until I was able to, have enough responses to make the content to then start posting it, right? So I think that was the hardest part because you can't make, posts out of nothing if you have no data, right? So So it was a lot of time spent on the paper cutter, just cutting out these, little QR codes so that I could get folks to take it, right? So, and then it just went on from there, and I thought, I could make this, a bigger Utah thing, and we could compare more schools, we could do more things, right? And so then I rebranded, and the rest is history. Yeah.
My gosh. Wait, that is so cool that you actually started. I mean, obviously I found your page when you were already had surveys going, but that's cool to hear you from the very start. And I'm curious, what is your goal, or I guess the intention behind your page?
Yeah. So my goal is to give people things to talk about and help to open up a conversation, right? I think it's easy to, talk and make content about opinions, right? Like, hey, I think that people should do this better, or I think this, right? But it's a different conversation angle when you state a fact or a statistic, right? 15% of men, blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, well, so what? Why? How? Right? And so I think it opens up a lot more questions when there's something that everyone can agree upon, right? Because otherwise, we see a lot of clashes of opinions and no one's ever landing on something. But if we can share something and say, hey, we both know that, example, middle-aged men have the highest rates of suicide, right? Among any demographic, right? Mm-hmm. Why, right? So we're both connected on that and we can discuss that, right? And so I think that has been my main goal, is just to open up a conversation and allow people to kind of discuss and think about things that normally aren't really studied or talked about, right?
I love that. It's like creating that Times Square approach where people could just feel, Times Square, that town square approach where people could just feel comfortable engaging in dialogue. And I think I never thought about that, how once you have something concrete that you can agree upon, now having discussions from there can facilitate a place where we can have a lot of growth within those discussions. So I love that. Wow.
Yeah. I think the why is the biggest thing, right? Because it's one thing to say, I think that this should be, the way it is. I think we should raise wages. I think that, we should, do this with politics, whatever it is, right? But if you already have, a fact, or statistic, right, then the only thing left to explore is the why, right? Mm-hmm. And that, I think, allows us to critically think beyond ourselves. Like, hey, this is something that I can't control. This is something that exists outside of me, right? It pulls people outside of themselves into the world, right? I think that, I think it's human nature, to get caught up in yourself and what you think and what you feel in your own experience, right? But I think that data can sometimes help to paint a picture of something outside yourself, something bigger, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. And what has the response been like to your page?
Yeah. Towards me, it's been pretty neutral because I try to have a pretty neutral aim towards things. I try to just post, the data and say, well, what do you guys think, right? Mm-hmm. People in the comment sections often can get a little bit, I don't know if offended is the right word, but I think people feel a little bit attacked if they are at the other end of it, right? Mm-hmm. I know that especially, so example, recently I posted some free response data that illustrated what women wish men knew, right? And a lot of women were like, hey, we're kind of scared about getting murdered on dates. Hey, we're kind of, scared about how intense you guys can be sometimes, or whatever, right? And a lot of men, we're instantly defensive, right? And same thing, right? I posted what men wish women knew, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of women were like, hey, actually, I don't know if I like this, like this isn't true, or, like, well, men do this, whatever, right? And so, I think that the response has been one of intrigue, but also a little bit of discomfort, because it's kind of, painting truths that, otherwise have either been assumed or either have been hidden, right? I mean, example, right? Everyone was really interested in sales bros, right? Right? I feel like they're at the butt of every joke, right? And so I wanted to do some data on it, right? And so I posted that, right? Sales bros statistically go on more dates than most men, have kissed more women than most men, right? And right? And so it made some people, I think, feel like, So the stereotype is there is truth in it a little bit, right? And so I think that it can make people feel a little bit uncomfortable sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. When they're connected to a statistic, right?
Right. That's where the growth comes in.
Yeah.
I think it's cool to be able to, like, obviously it's easier said than done, but like look at your page and like introspectively be like, okay, this does make me uncomfortable. Why? Like, maybe what can I change within myself? And when there's the data, it's like, it's hard to argue with that. I mean, of course, numbers can always be skewed in statistics and surveys, whatever. But when it's there and it's this so specific, like, niche and location, I think it's really interesting. So I'm curious, what has been like the most surprising statistic that you've seen?
Yeah. I think that the most surprising one is that men statistically in Provo actually prefer brunettes over blondes.
Stop.
Everyone
is that how many were I guess you might not remember.
It was around. Let's see. I can pull it up. I think I can pull it up, but I'd have to find it. But
it's always a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like.
So the question was, right, like, which hair color is the most attractive, right?
Uh-huh.
And according to men, I think about 50% said brunette and 30% said blonde, and then we had like red hair, black, et cetera, right? But yeah, that was, I think, the biggest shock for me and a lot of people, right?
Oh yeah.
Women obviously, well, I suppose I shouldn't say obviously, right? Because I guess a lot of things aren't obvious, right? It's confirmation bias, right? But women do statistically prefer brunettes over blondes by like a larger margin, right? Like I think it was like around 70-ish% of women in Utah prefer brunette men over blonde men, right?
Interesting.
But yeah,
wasn't there that time in Provo? I feel like not everybody, but I felt like there was a lot of women that were going blonde.
Oh,
remember
yeah.
And there wasn't that silver hair stage.
Yes,
I don't know if you were
the
there.
Platinum blonde. Yes.
Platinum blonde, yeah.
And I could never pull off. I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
But I guess not anymore.
Yeah.
All the brunettes need a different excuse.
Okay.
That was always my Well, I'm also ethnic, and so that's a whole different conversation.
That plays a different role completely.
No.
But
that's crazy.
Sure.
I feel like that's like that is shocking to me. I feel like that's one of the most basic. Provo boys love blondes.
Yeah,
like that was it's just fact.
Yeah, right. And so another one I found is that so I plotted the number of weekly soda shop visits on one axis and then plotted the height preference on another, right? Women who go to soda shops more frequently are pickier about height statistically than women who go less frequently.
It's like the fact that I can see that is like crazy to me. It makes sense though.
Yeah.
Like it makes sense.
That checks out.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think that was an unexpected one. I was like, what in the world? I gotta throw this on there, and everyone was like, what? Right? Conservative men prefer blonde women more than men who are more liberal as well.
I feel like I could see that as
sense.
well.
Yeah. I think that's been, the most surprising things that I can think of. I think a lot of things are generally will confirm what we had initially kind of like thought, right? So an example, right? People who had parents with more money generally had higher kiss counts than those who had less, right? And so I thought it was like, why is that, right? And again, there's so many conversations, right? And so initially I was like, oh, maybe it's because their parents are able to pay for more things, so they can work less and go on more dates, and therefore just have more opportunities to have kiss people, right? Or maybe is it a a cultural thing with higher income families, or like, what is it, right? So yeah, I mean, I could go on and on and on about,
Wise. I love that,
right?
dude.
Me too.
I love that so much because like stats and then the whys afterwards. Now we start
The
providing
the why.
different theories. That's cool.
Yeah,
so
right.
interesting.
One, I think that it's the last one I'll share. I don't want to take up too much, but I think the last
this
one.
is the whole point.
Yeah.
This is your interview.
Okay. Sorry,
You're doing great.
it's unnatural for me to be like the guy, and so I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm sorry, no, please, yeah.
No, this is so
Embrace
fascinating.
Because we're learning.
Yeah.
I think this one actually got a lot of heat is actually from the men. I asked in my recent survey about ethnicity preferences, right? And so I asked people, do you I'm pretty sure it was on a 3-point scale of, do you prefer neutrally, like you don't care either way, or do you prefer less people of the following ethnicities, right? And overwhelmingly, Provo men, prefer white women and do not prefer black women, among other, among others, folks as well. I think it was, but it was most prominent though among black women, which was really interesting, right? But the preference for white women was, just absolutely staggering, right?
Yeah.
And so, and again, why?
Mm-hmm.
I want to know your theories.
Why?
I have my own theory about this, but I want to hear your theory.
Yeah, right. I think that so I've heard theories about like people liking what they know, and the whole like what's it called? There was a theory I heard one time that talked about how people will actually romantically prefer slightly how their parent of the opposite gender looks in some sense, right? Like not like
I heard that.
Yeah.
I heard that. It used
Really?
to ghost me out. Like that. But is it like how like guys would be attracted to someone who looks like their mom, or like girls would be attracted to people that look like their dad?
kind of, but so think about this, right? Your first relationship with a man, right, was your father, right? So you learned what a relationship was like with a man first with your father, just in a more general sense, right? So what that, what does that look like? Like how do you feel when you're with him, right? You feel safe, right? You feel, loved, and you feel cared about, right? And so there are a lot of things that revolve around association, right? There's a common phrase in psychology that is neurons that fire together wire together, right? And so if your first relationship with a man or a woman or whoever, right, is this certain way, right, and you therefore feel feelings of attachment, of love, of care, right, then you're going to associate those same feelings when someone exhibits similar behaviors or similar potentially, physical attributes, right? And so that is one theory. I don't know if that's true or not, right?
Yeah.
But I have heard about it, right? I think that another portion is that, especially I think with the Black Lives Matter movement recently, I think that there has been a big shift in how people are seeing folks of different races now a little bit, right? So I think that not only is it like, okay, I am a white Utah Provo man, right? And I am seeing this person who is Hispanic, who is Black, who is, whatever, right? One, they are probably gonna have a different culture, right? Just because that's just, right? But also based on their ethnicity, are they also going to not align with my political beliefs, right? I think it would make sense, that Black women would tend to be more liberal, right, than conservative, right? And I mean, obviously there's, exceptions and outliers, right? But a theory of mine is I'm curious if men see Black women and think, oh, I think that they are going to, be more liberal, and statistically Provo men are more conservative, right? And so I'm curious if that also has anything to do with it, right?
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I remember I posted that, and there was a big comment war, about whether it's racism or whether it's a valid preference or whether it's a little bit of both, And so, yeah, I mean, I still don't know, I think about it, but I don't know,
I have two theories.
Yeah, please, yeah.
So one, because dude, being in Provo, and I played football for a little bit, but I was a walk-on, so I wasn't like a real football. You know what I'm saying? I was like, wow.
Okay.
I think I can ball, but that's a story for another day.
Okay.
But anyways, there's like this big thing on social media as well where every time you see an athlete, like if you go to a draft day and you see an athlete get drafted and there's a white woman by his side, comment sections immediately hateful. And so black man with white woman, immediately hateful.
Yeah.
But you go see someone like Serena Williams, who's married to someone that's not black. All the sisters, all the brothers in there supporting it. And it's just crazy to me because even in Utah, you see that, man. Like, me and my friends dealt with it. And it was never preference. But this was my theory though. Yeah. So, and this, I hope this don't give me, it can't give me cancer. This is my theory though. This is my theory. Okay. And when I first came from Texas, you saw all races and there was no shortage of beauty, both like across genders, right? So in that area, like the vicinity, like it was like this, I think when I was out there, it was like the 7th most diverse city. So you saw everything. So proximity wise, you could appreciate different things and you're around culture so much, you can learn. Coming to Utah, right? There was not much diversity. There was like less than 1% black. So we would have like, especially my friend group, like girls would tell us, oh, you don't like black women. You don't like black women. The reality was proximity wise, it was like 99. It's like if I would have put my hand in a jar and there's 99 white balls and 1 black ball, like the odds of me picking a black ball is just not high, not because of preference, just because of availability. Right. And then even with that availability, it's crazy because it's like, that's why I say I might give you cancer. It's not like we saying no to Beyonce and Halle Berry and Rihanna. You know what I'm saying? Like we're not saying no like that. It's just, that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's not the, you get me in trouble. Go get me in trouble.
I see what you're saying.
But it's not like we saying no to that, right? Yeah. And so that's why for me, it was like, it used to offend me. I'm like, it's more of a proximity thing because these athletes that go to these predominantly white schools that meet women and get drafted, they're around more white women than they are black women. So I always thought it was a proximity thing, like, because and this is, now this I want to get your take on it, especially I want to get your take on it, because we talked about this before. Utah, and this is going to be a controversial take, among white people, men and women, Utah has the most per capita beautiful people of white people. That's what I feel like. I feel like in Utah, like because they care so much about their looks, it's a gym town. A lot of people aesthetically are very attractive per capita among white people because, so many other theories.
Yeah. People say it's inbreeding.
And so the reason why I say that is because if you were to bring these white conservative men who aren't attracted to black women, you place them in Houston for 6 months, or you place them in Atlanta. That is, Atlanta and Houston, I would argue, is the equivalent for black people that Provo is for white people. And you put them in there, you are going to, like, I guarantee you, the most conservative white man is going to find more attraction to a black woman because he's going to see so many different looks. And so I even told some of my buddies that came from Houston, like, oh, I'm not attracted to white women. I said, all right, you say that, and then you come to Utah, and you come to these VASAs for a little bit, and you go to BYU campus, and then I brought somebody close to me. I brought somebody close to me, brought him to Utah for a little bit, and he said, brother, you might be right. And I said, hey, man, I'm not trying to say, that's what I'm saying. I just feel like it's a proximity thing, because once you're exposed to different things, you can't help but appreciate what's out there. But I would say like Provo to white people is what Atlanta and Houston are to black people, and if you were to take those people proximity wise, you just grow a love for it. But I feel like,
you say someone's not no, I was gonna say, just adding to that, you say if there's a guy who says they're not attracted to Asians, take them to Hawaii. Exactly. It's same thing. And the crazy part, don't these missionaries go to their mission, spend 2 years there, and then all of a sudden their attraction level completely changes? I cannot tell you how many RMs I've dated from Asian countries, from Hawaii, from even California. And it's so interesting because at first I'm like, ew, it's gross. It's like a fetish. It's like, but I feel like not good. But now I do. And it's a respect of the culture a lot of times. And so I'm like, whatever, I'm just going to embrace it. So do you think proximity has to play with it at all in terms?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like imagine you go in a gas station, and dad says, pick out one thing, right? You're like, oh, let's go. Right. I mean, if you have, like 100 different kinds of chocolate and then one type of, say hard candy, right? And you pick a chocolate, and dad says, oh, you don't like hard candy. It's like, well, there were just so many other options, to choose from, and so, I mean, probabilistically, like, I think absolutely, like, if that is what's available to you, then, I mean, statistically, I think you're just more likely to be more involved with those people.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I will say that if you were to take a statistic out of this, I would love for you to. If you were to take, I don't know how you would even rate beauty on a scale, but if you were to take someone like, I hate the 1 to 10 rating, but if you were to take a 7s and higher, that Provo men view, like if they were to take 7 to 10s out of the black women that they see, take the 7s to the 10s in the area, and you go find who those women marry, it's mainly white guys. Like, and that's why. But the thing is, I don't sit here and say, oh, that person, like that black woman doesn't like black men. I'm like, no, there's just so many white men out here. The odds of her finding a white guy attractive is high because of proximity.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like I don't know.
I agree.
So I don't know. I don't know if that's a controversial or a nuanced take. No, yeah. I'm like, I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's like, I feel like no one talks about this, and I feel like it's so valid. And I think if we are immediately just like, oh, it's racism. I mean, maybe it is for some people. There are.
Absolutely.
But I think like it's way more nuanced than that.
And you think, and even with that, I feel like Utah has a lot of ignorant racism, but literally all you have to do is move that person to a town that they haven't experienced, and they start to have a different understanding. Like you wouldn't imagine like how many of my small town family believe white people are out to get them. And then you come to a place like Utah, and then you realize, oh, okay, it's a little bit different. If I were to go to China right now, they'd probably be questioning me about my hair, and it's not racism. They've never seen it before.
Yeah,
right.
You know?
Yeah.
And so that's why I think what you're doing is honestly such a service to us, because these conversations don't get sparked without this. Because it's going to be uncomfortable at first. It's going to be like, dang, like these men don't find black women attractive. Well, why not? I'm like, oh, well, you haven't seen them.
Right.
So
the problem is I feel like too, is because a lot of people will like take theories and think like, I think that white women don't prefer that, or whatever, right? And so it's a lot of I thinks, and then it's some of the argument is, yeah, that's right, or no, that's wrong, but right? But we don't actually like settle on like, okay, well, how are things actually? Like what is, you could say truth, like what is what is actually happening? What do the numbers say? And so when you have that, it's like, okay, well, so now you can't argue whether white men tend to say that they prefer, white women or black women or whatever, right? It's already kind of there. So now we're discussing why, right? And that's what matters more, because again, it takes us outside of ourselves, right? It makes us think about other people, right?
Totally. Oh my gosh, so interesting. Okay, well, we're going to dive into more of your posts in just a little bit, but we had a fun little segment we wanted to do with you.
All right, let's do it.
Provo in Utah has its own vocabulary, and we need you to define some of these things before we proceed with the interview, because we don't want people to be confused.
Yeah.
So we're going to just rapid fire different terms. And if there's more that aren't on the list, just add them in, because
this already hurt my heart. This already hurt my heart. This already hurt my heart. I'll tell you why though, but let's get through it.
Okay.
All right, let's do it.
NCMO.
NCMO stands for non-committal makeout. It is the equivalent of a hookup, where two individuals will just come together and make out and then leave.
Okay, Sub, you're the perfect person for this. This is so good. Okay, you do the next one.
Summer sales bro.
Summer sales bros, a special breed of men. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. No.
Hey, I was one for a summer. I got to put that out there before. Hey, shout out to all my boys that are doing sales, but y'all do fall.
It is hard work.
It is
honestly,
very hard work,
respect.
but the stereotypes reign true. So,
So summer sales bro, as the name kind of indicates, right? It is a person, generally a man, right, who does summer sales, and generally, is often seen to have made it kind of their personality, right? They may be known for it because they bring it up to all their friends and try to get them in on it, so they get extra commission or, whatnot, right?
Yeah.
That is the stereotype. Is someone who does sales and makes it their personality.
Make fun of your 9 to 5, says they make more than a doctor.
So
some of them do though. Some of them make some bank, but majority is just like, we gotta be realistic.
Yeah.
VASA bros. Or VASA with VASA in general, or is this? I know VASA bros. Is there like VASA?
Either one.
Yeah. So VASA is a gym, and it is known, I think, because a lot of people who were in these college towns in Orem and Provo, generally attend it. I think probably over other gyms.
It's the
I don't know
gym.
why. Yeah, it's the it gym.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So yeah, a VASA bro is, again, I think has been stereotyped to mean someone who makes going to the gym at VASA their whole personality, right? And so, you're on a date and all they talk about is how they, work out 5 times a day and can bench, 250 and, right?
Batchlor. Anything to add?
Listen. The VASA bro is real. I don't know if you've seen the recently there's been like a little like a social war between what's better, VASA or EOS, but it's all the same thing.
Interesting.
Oh my gosh, interesting.
Oh,
EOS
yeah.
wasn't a thing when I was in Provo. It was just VASA.
Yeah, now it's like
Interesting.
the uppity.
Is it better?
Because EOS does have better equipment and but it's just like VASA home, so you kind of just go there. But I will say though, VASA is dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Nah, I mean I work out with my fiance. So
Okay.
I work out with my fiance. I have shades on, so I shades on, so like the social aspects cut.
Okay,
Like, I put my shades on. Nobody
Yeah.
messes with me. I don't mess with nobody.
Yeah, just lock in. Yeah.
I'll never holler at someone at the gym though, because like there's.
Yeah.
I look around at the dudes. I'm just like, yeah, nah,
Yeah.
they got it, cause them dudes
Yeah.
them dudes be wearing shorter than the women. They be having the. I'm like, nah, I ain't gonna mess.
Yeah, the tank tops, it's like,
Yeah.
that.
Literally,
What's going on?
I'd be
Yeah.
walking to my yoga class like
I
it's in the very back. I'm like not looking.
Hey,
Anyway.
I love it though. They do.
Same men who complain about,
Yeah.
how much or how little women are wearing.
I mean,
I didn't want to say it.
I mean,
Yeah.
that is what it is.
Hey, we love it. That's why it's third hour. It's not second
Yeah.
hour, baby. We can talk about this stuff.
Yeah. That's right.
But this one shouldn't break my heart as much as it has.
Okay.
But kiss count.
Mhm.
When I found out about what kiss count, and you're about to explain it, just know that baby Batch, when I first came out here,
Yeah.
you would have thought I thought kiss count was body count. How much it hurt my fault. Am I supposed to? Am I allowed to say
No,
body
you're good. You're good. I'm like it's basically the equivalent.
No, when I found out that girls had kiss list,
Mhm.
oh my heart, bro. Because I was never the NCMO guy. I would fall in love
Yeah.
immediately. Like it was bad. You ever seen Hitch?
I have. Yeah.
Y'all gotta include this. This was Batch. Like the first scene of Hitch when he's like banging on the window, he's like, "But I loved you," but she's with another dude
Yeah.
in the ring. That
Stop.
that was me. That was me. It was bad. Like
Actual footage of you.
Like I'm telling, I would never ever be like you would never catch me like a video of me being drunk.
Yeah.
High.
Yeah.
You could never get anything like that on me. Like if I was running for a president and you know how they find all this
Yeah,
dirt, you
yeah.
can never find dirt on me. But if you can get some old text messages of me begging, bruh,
Your Bachelor back in his simp days.
that is not the
So,
Bachelor, y'all.
Are there, if there's any girls listening,
Hey, do not.
please
Hey,
send
I'm an engaged man.
DM
Y'all better stop
me.
playing with me. 26 now. That was 21-year-old Batch. But anyways,
Wedding gift, a scrapbook of all your
No,
old,
no.
all the cringy texts.
Hey,
No,
listen, I need
I
my-
feel that, bro.
my girl has only seen the cool, calm, collected, romantic
Okay.
Batch. Got all together Batch.
Okay,
That
okay.
old Batch, Jacob, man,
Yeah.
you would have
Oh
been,
my
you would be
gosh.
laughing at it. You would be looking
Yeah.
at me. You would lose all respect and be like, Batch, pick yourself up off the ground.
I feel that.
But that's what
we've
them
all
kiss
been
lists you do.
there.
Oh my gosh.
No,
Even thinking
it's
about
crazy.
it. But kiss count, break it down.
Yeah.
for us, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. Essentially the equivalent of body count except for kissing, right? So, I mean, people will keep track of how many people that they've kissed and apply some kind of meaning to it one way or the other.
And literally, it's like in high schools now. Like I'm in Young Women's, and
Yeah.
there's my girls in high school are like, they're like, my friends kiss count. They're like in the 20s. I'm like, you're literally in high school. Like I did
20
not
in high
know
school?
In
20
high school is
in
crazy.
high school.
I
I'm
don't-
like, guys,
I've never even had 20 friends. Like
literally, I'm like,
yeah.
who are these boys? They just kiss just for fun.
Yeah.
It's honestly, it's sad.
What's that thing that it's not a conveyor belt, but they used to call it something like that. But they would have like 5 girls, 5 dudes, and they would just rotate who kisses. I was
Stop.
working at Fat Cats. And I was in college, and so obviously the high school kids there, and so like I'm like big bro, I'm like mentor,
Yeah.
and they telling me about some of the lingo, and I'm like, dog, y'all gotta have some sort of respect for yourself. You can't just be doing that.
That is so
But they were
Utah
laughing.
coded.
And I was just like,
can't.
it was some sort of
Interesting.
like conveyor belt thing, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like I was dating someone at the time. I immediately was like, hey, have you ever done this? Apparently it was
Yeah.
normal. My heart broke.
It's interesting.
Stop. up.
Interesting.
That's crazy.
Man.
Okay, so that's just where we're
interesting.
at.
Jacob, you're bringing back bad memories for me right now, Jacob. And
Sorry, bro.
I'm gonna engage, man.
Sorry, it's therapy session for Batch now. Okay?
I know. Should we
that's what it
dive
is, I think.
deeper into
No,
this?
we should not.
What's the why, Batchlor, right? You know, like.
Oh my gosh.
What's next?
Okay, Mutual.
Yeah. Mutual is a dating app that is targeted towards members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And it includes, filters that kind of give, I guess, respect to the church and towards different things, right? In terms of temple attendance, and in terms of, kids, that kind of thing, right? And so that is the main dating app, I think, used by those in Utah, and I think, in surrounding areas, right?
Yeah.
To find those of the same, faith, right?
I heard it's not even good anymore. Like, I was just talking to my friend who's single, and she lives in she lives in Pleasant Grove, I think.
Okay.
But she's like, it's just not even good. Like, people just use it for NCMOs now. Do you have any insight?
Yeah. So I can't remember off the top of my head, but I did. Oh, oops. I asked recently in a survey what people use dating apps for, right?
Uh-huh.
And men use them for NCMOs more than women.
Uh-huh.
Men use them in hopes of finding a long-term relationship a little bit more than women, whereas women, I think, are mainly like casual dates / friends / just kind of like exploring, kind of thing, right? And so I think men are a little bit more, I don't know if intentional is the right word, but a little bit more, I think, focused on their use in it than women are sometimes.
Mutual's going through a rebranding.
Yeah.
Are they?
They're
Interesting.
I had met with someone in their marketing.
Cool.
And so they're wanting to less emphasis on marriage and more emphasis on just getting people on dates.
Okay.
I thought it was a cool approach. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to be Mr. Wingman on there. So
Yeah, there you
Love
go.
that for you.
now that you told me your story, I'm gonna have to
Exciting.
feature you. I'm gonna have to call you up, man, and get your story on there.
Yeah, man. Anytime.
Cool.
I'll do it.
Yes, sir. Get Jacob on there. Come on, dog, spokesman.
I'll do it.
Oh my gosh. No,
Yeah.
because I remember, I was married before Mutual was even,
Really? Wow.
because I just did Tinder. And by the time Mutual came out, I was with my now husband. But I feel like it was always from my friends, it was Tinder was the hookup NCMO app. And then Mutual was if you want to be serious.
Yeah.
I wonder, are people even doing Tinder now? Or is it now if you're a member, you're on Mutual?
I thought Hinge
Oh yeah,
was the move
Hinge
now.
too.
Yeah. Hinge is being used by a pretty decent amount of members. Tinder less so than Hinge, but it still mainly is Mutual, I think.
Interesting.
But yeah.
Really?
And so, we can talk about, what people are doing on the app, what it was and what it is now, right? But based on at least what I've been seeing, you'll get what you come and look for, you know what I mean? Right? If you're, if you only want, only want NCMOs, right? Then you'll probably find that, right? If you're looking for a relationship, eventually, you'll find it, right? There's so many people on it, that it's kind of hard to say, oh, it's just all this anymore, or it's all that, right? And so, but yeah, it's certainly I think it's a pretty big staple in the community, I think, in the culture, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. What are G's?
G's are garments, and garments are a sacred underclothing worn by endowed members of the church that are a symbol of their covenants with God. And the reason that they are a big topic is because there is sometimes some, I think, debate and conversation around the proper wearing of it, right? And how someone wears it can communicate, or rather people can perceive how people wear them to mean certain things about their other beliefs, right? So yeah.
What do we think of G's as a nickname? Do we think it's disrespectful? Do we use it? What do you guys do? I'm curious.
I haven't, so I haven't heard it a whole lot. I don't use it myself. I think that it probably shouldn't be used because I think that G's is a word that was used to make it a little bit less awkward than saying garment, right?
Yeah.
And the full name we know is the garment of the holy priesthood, right? And again, it's a representation of us taking upon, the Savior Jesus Christ, right? And so, I mean, I think it is just probably a little bit better to, refer to it as it's been called, right? And rather to remember the why behind it, right?
Totally.
Yeah,
What do you
I
think?
don't play around with the sacred stuff. I don't call
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
I just think it's interesting because I feel like a lot of people like picked up on that on their mission. Like that's where I feel like a lot of people started with the nickname. I don't personally use it. I've never really even thought about it that much. Like,
Yeah, I never even thought it was awkward to say garments. I got my
Right.
garments on. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But then again, I am weird about stuff. I be wearing my garments to work out because I feel like it helped me lift better. But that's like weird
Yeah, I
stuff
get
I be
you.
doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
right, that's great. You know what?
When I
You
first
do
got
you.
my garments, when I first wore my garments, I wore them on the beach. I was like, it's for me. I think I got nothing to do with anybody else. But yeah, my dog Jacob, we don't play around with the garments. We don't play around with the garments.
No, I'm with. I mean, maybe I don't go to that extent, but I'm with you.
Yeah,
I don't know if G's is like necessarily disrespectful. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
it is. I've never really thought about
Yeah,
it. I
it may-
personally don't say it, but
Yeah.
I just think
Rather-
like not everything needs a nickname, you know. And I'm
Yeah.
like certain things with with God and like the Lord. Just certain things I just
Totally.
would rather not
Yeah.
play with.
yeah,
G's isn't, I don't think, the issue, but rather it's how it's the context in which it's often used, right?
Yeah.
Like it's how is your tone, how are you referring it, and how are you thinking about it, right? Because ultimately it's our attitude, and our relationship, towards them, right?
yeah.
Yeah, without a
That's
doubt.
such a good point.
And then imagine if someone gave you something super, super special, and then you referred to it casually and joking in front of others,
Right.
how would you
Because
feel?
then they don't
right?
take it serious, especially
Yeah.
we are representing Christ Church, and so
Yeah.
a lot of people come to see us and we interact and we try to like not dumb things down, but we kind of like try to lighten it because we don't want the people to like feel overwhelmed or
Yeah.
think certain things. Like,
Right.
no,
Yeah.
they are what they are.
Yeah.
They are garment underclothing,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
It's
I
true.
love that.
It's true. Yeah.
That's great. I can't just say this after just talking about garments.
Is this the
Okay.
bike trail? Yeah. Talking about the bike trail?
This is the bike. Is it a bike trail or a hiking trail?
What is it?
Squaw Peak.
Oh yeah. So Squaw Peak actually, I'm pretty sure, has been renamed because squaw was a slur for some kind of Native American
What?
tribe, I think, and so now it's called Kiev Peak, I think. So Squaw Peak, though,
Did you
originally,
know that it is renamed? I
did
had
not
no
know that.
idea.
But dang, we were over here using the derogatory term this whole time.
Like
apparently-
for a makeout spot. That is horrible. That's horrible. Are we kidding?
yeah, I'm looking back.
my gosh.
Jacob, weren't you? So you were in Idaho or you were in BYU?
So
Well-
I'm from Idaho, but I went to BYU.
Okay, I was about to say, I was like, how do you know so much about? You did say BYU because then you're Capstone. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So Squaw Peak, now known as Kiev Peak, is a place that has been stereotyped to be the makeout place because supposedly a lot of people would go there to make out because it has a great view.
Jacob said supposedly.
There's
supposedly. I've been there.
I can say firmly that I have never made out with someone at Squaw Peak before.
Good for you.
I went on a date one time where we said, hey, it'd be funny if we drove to Squaw Peak, didn't make out, and then went home and told our roommates that we went to Squaw Peak, had them freak out, and then say, but we didn't make out, And so we thought, it'd be funny, right? And so I've done that, but I haven't made out with anyone at Squaw Peak, except for my wife, who,
She's
right.
your wife.
yeah, she's my wife, right? Post marriage, right? No making out pre-marriage. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. No, but
Post marriage Jacob is vicious, huh?
that was crazy. That is Squaw Peak. There are people. I'm pretty sure that there have been people who will take flashlights and go up there on like Friday nights and like shine the lights through car doors on people making out and like record them, which is kind of funny, but also like if I was on the other end of that, I'd be like, "So, bro, what are you doing, bro? Like,
Yeah.
Yo,
you have nothing else better to do?" So, I don't know. But that's
Bro, people are
that's
funny.
yeah, that is the stereotype though.
okay.
Yeah.
I got brought up to Squaw Peak when I first came out here.
Got a girl brought you up to Squaw Peak?
Well, the boys.
Girl, I'm about to make a joke, but
Okay.
these people, people
Okay.
watching, they're gonna be tripping. But no, I got brought up there, and the crazy part was I was from Texas, so there's no like mountains and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I'm getting taken up there, and she's swerving on because it's whiny. I've never been there, so I'm over here like, oh my, I'm about to fall off this mountain. I'm scared of heights. I ain't never hiked. None of that stuff. Boy Scouts, I went there to play capture the flag. So we going all the way up there. So we get to the top, and I'm just like, man, this is what I'm talking about. I'm getting taken to a nice view. Like this is
great. Yeah,
I deserve to get treated like this. Man, I got out the car. 'Cause I thought that's what you do. I got out the car, walking around. She stayed in the car. I was like,
what are you doing in there?
Yeah, what you doing? Man, listen.
I'm listening.
I'm just saying. Roles reversed. I'd have been in jail. That's I ain't know there was no consent involved in that at all. I was in over like, bro, what is going on? I will say though, I was not used to that. I was not used to that. But yeah, I realized soon that outlooks were used not for view. Mm-hmm. But I will say I went back to Squaw Peak with my homie.
Yeah.
Big Paws. We camped out there, car camp, because everybody was camping.
Yeah.
And like I said, the outdoors was not friendly to myself. So we just camped out in the car and just chilled. But he is married in the Timber Nuggets temple. I don't want y'all to think nothing crazy, but
that's my temple. That's my temple.
But yeah, the outlook thing is hilarious when I tell my friends about it.
If you go and drive around on the mountainside over by Provo on like a Friday night, you see cars parked on the side of the road around the temple parking lot, like all this things, right? That's
lot.
But why the whys? It makes sense though because of Provo housing.
Yeah.
Like when I was at BYU, we had rules like girls weren't allowed in the rooms except Wednesdays and Sundays for 2 hours. The door had to be open. 1 foot had to be on the ground at all times. Like it was like, it was on. They were on some stuff. They were on some stuff. So I understand why people had to get away.
Yeah.
Hey.
I mean, where else do you go?
And
it's like we're driving to this place to look out.
Yeah. I didn't know. We used to hit golf balls off Squaw Peak though. So
yeah, nice.
But anyways, side note. But it makes sense. I was wondering why.
No, yeah.
I be rambling too, like you, Jacob. My mind be going a million different places.
No, you fine.
I'm so glad that we got to hear that story. Yeah. We're learning so much about you today,
dude. All this Batchlor lore is coming out. I'm kind of here for it.
It's crazy though, because I'm like, I'll never talk about this stuff on my page because I'm like, I keep my personal life, I keep my private life private. But man, I'm looking at all these terms like, oh man.
Okay, we just have 2 more. Okay, one is ghosting.
Okay, so ghosting is something that is not, it's not unique to Utah, but ghosting is when you don't respond to someone out of nowhere, usually after a date, like on a dating app or something like that, right? And you just never hear from them again, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's pretty sad.
Yeah.
I know it's not like specific to Utah, but you feel like it happens more in Utah?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm not sure. I think that in any big college town where there are a lot of options and a lot of people, I think that's the main driver of it, right? Because I mean, if you have, like 20 people in your DMs, and you only really care about, 5 of them, 3, 2, 1, whatever, right? Then a lot of people are going to get, we'll get ghosted, right? I mean, it's like applying for a job, you know what I mean? Like a lot of people are interested in this position, and only if you're gonna hear back, right?
Oh my gosh, I'm done. I love Jacob. My dog Jacob speaking from experience, huh, Jacob?
Yeah,
Some of these girls not gonna get that call back, huh, Jacob?
Yep. No, I was on the other end of it. I was the ghosted.
Nah, Jacob, I don't believe it, man. I don't believe it.
No.
He's being too specific with that DM count. Say you got 20. I have 20 DMs, only 25% I can focus on.
Nah, bro. I was over communicative. I it ate at me if I didn't respond to someone. I saw it, and I don't know if it's ADHD or whatnot, but I see a notification, I'm like, oh, I gotta respond. You know what I mean, right? So
that's
I think
good.
So I was the opposite. I was over communicative probably. So.
But that's a better problem to have than being ghosted.
For sure. And I have a ton of Sorry, I have a ton of thoughts on communication that I can talk about a little bit more later in the thing. But there's a lot there. Yeah.
Okay, we will dive in.
Yeah.
Last one is soda shops. What are soda shops?
Yeah. So for those who don't know, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints generally do not drink alcohol, as that's something contained in the Word of Wisdom, which is a commandment that has been revealed. And so most members generally will abstain from drinking like alcohol or even coffee and tea, right? And soda shops could be seen as a substitute for that. They allow people to just go out and get a drink that's, that fits their religious code per se, right? I mean, so, yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Do you feel like soda shops are to what like a Starbucks is outside of Utah?
I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
It makes sense. I mean,
people go hang out and study there, like
meet up, catch up, and a date, whatever. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay. What about other Provo stereotypes? Do you have any stereotypes like we could myth bust?
Well, we already I think we busted the one about men preferring blondes, right?
Yes.
It's not true.
Okay, what about fact or fiction? Everyone in Utah has filler.
Like lip filler?
Uh-huh.
I don't think that's true. I think that there's a lot of things that we see on social media, we see billboards for, and then we associate that with our experience in Utah, right? However, I mean, there are a lot of people, who just are, are normal people, who don't do all these things that we generalize, right? And so, I mean, like, even though I'm pretty sure that Utah is, I think, the number one in plastic surgery in the United States, if I'm correct. I don't know if that's...
I've heard that.
I've heard that too.
Yeah. And so, I mean... So it would make sense, for the stereotype, but it's not every girl, right?
Literally. No, I think that brings up such a good point, actually, because I feel like there are so many influencers from Utah who do like cosmetic procedures, but I think people would be surprised if they came to Utah, like it's just how many normal people they see. You know what I mean? Like not everyone is this stereotypical Utah mom, like with the filler and the Stanley, like a lot of them do, but there's like just normal people.
Yeah. But why do you guys think people tend to like care so much? Is it because there's like a perception of these women being deemed higher in society, or why do people? Because in my head it's like, like people that feel it, cool for them. It has nothing to do with like anything I have going on in my life. Like let them live. But I know that is it some like what is it that makes people? Because I know like even people back home know about the whole trend of getting fillers and getting work done and all that kind of stuff. And there's esthetician shops all around. Like my fiance is a master esthetician. Her books is filled. Yeah. People just, I mean, I don't blame them. I got one facial one time, but that's besides the point. Yeah. But what do you think why do you think people are so caught up in that? Yeah. I think people care because they care what that means about the person and who they are, right? I mean, I know people who say that those who get this kind of procedure done are quote unquote fake, right? And are trying to be something they're not, right? And on the flip side, there are individuals who see that as taking care of themselves and, are trying to, make themselves, just appear more professional, more aesthetic, right? And so, and then again, what does that say about them? They care about certain things, right? There's a scripture. It says, "For your treasure is there will your heart be also," right? And so I think a lot of people create stereotypes and care about them because they think, okay, someone does this, so I think that means that they treasure this thing. They treasure how they look, or they treasure, fitting in, or they treasure, whatever, right? And so I think that's why people care, because they care about what kind of person they are, right? Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, everyone will get cosmetic procedures for different reasons. Yeah. But I feel like a lot of it will come down to the perfectionism in Utah. And even like going deeper, like a different intention could be comparison or like being competitive with other people. I mean, I think it's like what you said. It's like, it just depends on your intention. And I think some people, like, it definitely is like, I want to take care of myself and I want to look good for me. And for other people, it might be for other people. I don't know. But I think it definitely speaks to like the culture here that it is so common.
Yeah. So in the same vein of busting myths and things, or rather reaffirming them too, right? I asked in my survey recently if people agree or disagree that they swipe up on dating apps mostly based on the pictures or not, right? And men overwhelmingly swipe up more based on looks than women do, right?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people had thought about that, right? But I feel like a lot of men also will kind of critique women and say that they swipe based on a whole list of requirements, right? And so I thought that it was I mean, super interesting, right? And then the last one I'll share. I also asked about like which I phrased it a certain way. Which physical attributes contribute the most to someone being attractive? Like what matters in someone being attractive or not? Is it eyes? Does hair matter? Does whatever, right? And men overwhelmingly said that body shape and physique, right, was like the number one like thing that determined if a woman was attractive from their perspective or not, right? And for women, it was like it varied a lot. Like every woman had a different combination of responses, right? But it was a lot of like their smile and like hair, face structure, right? And so I think that was also just an interesting stereotype, which we had heard about, men being, I guess, rather focused or critical on women's bodies, right? And so it's interesting too.
Oh, that is so interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Numbers don't lie.
Numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to get into
Yeah.
like some of your stuff on your page.
Yeah.
Here, let's pull
Let's do it.
up right here. I have some saved that I wanted to go over with you. And then I do want to get into like just kind of overall Provo dating scene.
Yeah.
Like get your take. But
yeah.
And some of these we might have already talked about a little bit. We can go kind of quick. Okay. Oh, here we go. Here's the one you were just referring to. What contributes to men's physical attractiveness. It is interesting how it is so many different, like these are kind of close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I especially included the column for like, how many women vote this as their number one, as opposed to number two or three, whatever, right? And so that was pretty interesting, how it's pretty even across the board, right?
Totally.
And so even though on average smile and teeth had an average higher rank, a greater percentage, so like hair had a higher rank than eyes, but more people listed eyes as their first.
I see.
Yeah. So there's a difference then in like the overall average versus like how many thought it was the most important, right?
Okay.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at this one. Oh, hobbies. Okay, one.
This was so funny because so for context, when I created this, I couldn't just free response. I couldn't allow people to free responses because then it, I couldn't aggregate all the data, so easily. And so I asked ChatGPT to make me a list of like, a broad list of hobbies that will encompass most, if not all hobbies, right? And so I did that, and included on there was bird watching. And a lot of people didn't like bird watching for some reason.
I know.
That is wild.
like so I mean video games, like, okay, I get it, like fishing, okay, yeah, like, and then like yoga, something interesting. Bird watching.
What do you have against bird watching? Provo girls.
And it was so funny because I have a good friend and coworker who like she loves bird watching. like
good for her.
Like she loves it. And so I thought this and I was like, man, what the heck? Like what's going on here, right?
That's actually wild.
It's so interesting. Yeah.
And for men, it was the same thing. Like bird watching was also,
really?
Yeah, like men didn't like girls who bird watched. I don't know if they saw them as like, like a certain kind of person or whatever, right?
They just assumed like looks associated with certain things.
I guess.
Yeah.
So maybe they,
what could bird watching have to do with someone's attractiveness?
Maybe they imagine bird watching, think of like a Miss Frizzle type, like science person is like
from Home Alone.
Yeah,
the lady out there in the
pigeon lady. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because I really couldn't picture what a bird watching person looked like.
And I don't think that bird watching people even like look different. So
so
I'm curious, like what people are like, so maybe those who are listening can comment and be like, hey, what do you got against bird watching? Like.
My homegirl Maggie she'd be posting about her bird watching.
Yeah.
Maggie, I'm sorry. That's what the statistics say.
Sorry, Maggie.
Sorry.
Oh my gosh. Okay. This one
Oh,
is
yeah.
super interesting. Okay. Am I able to pause it on this? Maybe not. So you asked 700 plus Utahns how long couples should date before getting engaged.
Yeah. So this is what. So I asked people what they thought, not what they did.
Okay.
And so this is what people think is like ideal, you know.
And it's just that?
Yeah, that's the average.
Does that seem a little short to anybody else? Like,
Well,
I mean, I guess
I
it's...
thought that was longer from what I thought it was longer from what I
Yeah,
was.
it's way long compared to the stereotype. But the stereotype is like 3 months.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But that's the stereotype. This is asking not what they did, but the ideal.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're saying this is the ideal.
So maybe a lot of people are like, yeah, I think it's good to date for a long time. And they get in a relationship, they're like, I want to get married, you know, and they're like, I'm going to expect,
Yeah.
you know, right? And so I think that I think there's a gap between, you know, the ideal, you know, what's probably best versus what actually ends up happening, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, I'm just saying outside of Utah, obviously it's going to be very, very different.
No, yeah.
Yeah. But even on my side, people thought that I was rushing mine. But we had been dating for.
Who's yours?
We were friends for a year.
Wow.
And then we were.
Yeah, I was not that.
Yeah, we were. Man, I told you, man. I mean, like I said, bro, like that
Yeah.
heartbreak killed you, boy. I was over
Yeah.
here like, nah, I don't want to get married. Marriage is not for me.
Yeah.
But then she was a trooper though, and
Yeah,
then we dated for 14 months after being friends for a
Wow.
year, and then people still on my side was like, you're kind of rushing it. So I
Are you
was-
kidding me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, but back home, there's a lot of people who will date for a long time,
Years.
but they'll move in together.
Mhm.
They may even have kids,
Right.
but
Yeah.
until they get themselves established, that's when they'll get married.
Right.
Interesting.
And we just have a different perspective on it. But
Yeah, no.
So why do Latter-day, because I'm assuming this is Utah, but I'm
Yeah.
assuming a lot of this is Latter-day Saints. Why do
Yeah.
Latter-day Saints feel like they need to date for only like 9 to 10 months before getting
Yeah.
engaged, getting married?
That's a great question. And to be honest, I mean, I don't know entirely, right? My best guess is that it's because of the emphasis placed on marriage, right? Where marriage is prioritized, and then we grow up, you know, knowing and believing that marriage is important, right? That when we're placed in a scenario where we can get married and it feels good to do so, then why not, right? Whereas I think those who are outside the faith, right, perhaps often see marriage as something that you don't necessarily need to start a family, right? You know, whereas in our faith, you know, we believe that marriage is the proper place to start a family in, right? And so I think it's a matter of just knowing, I think this is a right thing to do. And so let's do it, right? Because I mean, other individuals I think will date and move in on similar timelines potentially, right? And effectively be married, right? Be living together, you know, and doing all these things, right? And so I think that's the main difference is just, you know, I think it's the core emphasis on marriage, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think also just our focus on like progression and like moving to the next step, I think, because I mean, you're dating someone and at a certain point, I think, you know,
Yeah.
and it doesn't always take a long time. Like when I was dating Eric, it was like a few months in, I'm like, okay, this is my husband. But I think, I mean, I had some other pageant obligations, so I couldn't get engaged and married right away. But I think maybe if I didn't have that, we dated for like a year and a half before we got
Wow.
married. And
I feel short.
wait, how long did you guys date?
From first date to engagement was 70 days.
Oh my gosh.
And then from engagement to marriage, coincidentally, was another 70 days.
But to be honest with you, like when I look back, the only thing that delayed me was just
Yeah.
me. That was just, it had nothing.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I don't know if this, I think for dudes, like when you know, you know. For me, I spent more time in my relationship fighting the feeling than when I actually first felt the feeling. Because if I were to go off when I first felt like, all right, this is the person that I think principle wise
Yeah.
will be able to build something. Like if I were to go strictly off gospel standards, you find someone who like loves the gospel, respects you, loves you.
Yeah.
You respect them, like you love them, you're willing to
Yeah.
serve them. If I were to go off of that,
Yeah.
like you could have proposed the first month of us even being friends, because I already knew out the gate like the kind of person that she was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I spent that next, it's just the worldly thoughts, bro. It's like, man, I don't got my paper in order. I don't know if I'm gonna be here. I don't know if she start questioning. I don't know if this person can't want to marry me right now. Like you start
Yeah.
going through all this stuff.
Yeah.
But for you though, like when you knew, could you have gotten? Do you think you could have gotten married right then and there?
I feel like we probably could have. And I mean, he's my person, obviously. And I saw that commitment. I feel like it's like seeing that commitment to the relationship, the commitment to God. Like once I saw that, I'm like, okay, he's going to be a great husband and father. And so I think we could have, but I think it also is really valuable. I'm glad we had that time to date, and I think see each other in different scenarios, seasons is very beneficial. But I mean, if you see that commitment, I mean, obviously look at you've been married for several years, and I know it works for people. Was surprised that it was like that. It was less than a year, and people saw that as the ideal. But I mean, I do see both sides.
I get what you're saying. Like how long? Because I would also be interested in knowing how many of those Utahns were married when they answered this, or when they were dating when they answered this.
So the majority of individuals in the survey, in general, are single. So
okay,
it was like 15 or 20% were married.
Wow.
So what do they know?
So most of this is the single individuals.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. That's still low. Yeah. I thought for people who are married, I don't know. I guess I was thinking like people that are single would probably say, I need to be with this person for a year. But people who are married would be like,
right, like
we knew after a couple months.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah,
so interesting. Well, I like the conversation that these spark. This is really cool.
That's the whole point, right?
Let's just do this one as like the last one. So 57% of college girls accept every first date they are asked on to be polite. So thoughts. I'm actually surprised it's that low.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
There's a lot of majority of women just be being nice.
Mm-hmm. For a first date, that's what I was always taught. Maybe not taught, but I feel like that was the common thing.
Wow.
In young women's, you're taught you got to try all the flavors of ice cream.
Oh, I hated that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
She's brought back another memory. Oh my gosh. I knew I liked mint chocolate chip before I even had butter pecan. Like I knew butter pecan was not going to compare to mint chocolate chip. Anyways.
No, I mean, that's just what that is the culture, and like we're taught to date around. And I think it goes back to the For Strength of Youth pamphlet. It said like don't date one person, like date around and like know what you like. And I think there's truth to that, but I think that also like put on women pressure to like just accept first dates. And who knows, like sometimes you may be surprised if there's someone that like you might have said no to a first date to and then you say yes and it ends up working out. But I feel like a lot of it's just interesting. I feel like that I'm surprised it's not higher.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. So like about the why or my opinion on whether it's good or not.
Both.
Okay. So the why I think definitely boils down to a lot of, how I think young women, were taught, just, as a person in general, to be, a kind person, but I think also specifically, with dating, right? Like you and others have mentioned how they were, I think specifically instructed, to give men a chance, right? And, I think the rhetoric is like men are exercising courage to ask you out. So it's important to pay them respect and accept. Right. And so I think that definitely remains true. And I think that there was guilt that's felt if you reject someone, if they ask you on a first date. Right. Because then you feel like, oh, no, I made them feel bad. I'm responsible for their feelings and how they feel self-conscious and all these things. And it's my fault, blah, blah, blah. Right. But then there's the other facet of, but if I say yes and then say no to the second date, is that going to be worse, right? And so, so there's a lot of complication there, right? And I think that it is, a fine thing to, in general, just accept every first date if that's how you want to choose things, right? But also, I think it boils down to more of who you are as a person and what you're trying to communicate to them, right? If I would much prefer a woman, if I was a single man, if I asked her on a date, if she knew instantly that she just wasn't interested and would not be, I'd much prefer her, to say no than to politely say yes and then say no on the second date, right?
Right.
And so, it just boils down to communication, right? And so, right.
It just gives these dudes false sense of confidence too. And so, first of all, it's not the women's responsibility to.
Right. You have no obligation.
You have no obligation to that. But two, I think for it's a good lesson for guys. You don't get everything you want in this life. And if you want to ask that, but it does two things for the guy. Well, not even for the guy, because there have been women that ask out first. And I think what it does is, one, it doesn't waste your time. And two, it puts you in spaces where you are wanted. And I think you should want that for yourself.
Yeah. You know, I love how you said, you know, being in places where you're wanted, right? I mean, there are, I feel like, a lot of men who are after women who aren't interested in them, and they are putting themselves in places where they aren't wanted. And then they complain about women not wanting them, right?
I hate that.
Oh
my gosh.
Instead of being like, okay, I'm going to go find some women who are going to resonate with me. There's a scripture that I actually wanted to share.
Yeah.
So Bruce R. McConkie was the father-in-law of my mission president.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So my mission president married the daughter of Bruce R. McConkie.
Cool.
Yeah. And one time, Elder McConkie gave some dating advice to someone, and my mission president gave this to us as we would leave our missions, right? So when asked, you know, like, hey, Elder McConkie, you know, like, what advice do you have for dating, right? He quoted the scripture in Doctrine and Covenants. He said, if I can find it.
This is exciting. This is Bruce R. McConkie's dating advice.
D&C 40:88. For intelligence cleaveth unto intelligence, wisdom receiveth wisdom, truth embraceth truth, virtue loveth virtue, light cleaveth unto light, mercy hath compassion on mercy, and claimeth her own. And so when the missionaries who heard that were, you know, first confused, right? It was explained that, you know, it's often said that opposites attract, but statistically, actual research has showed that we generally marry individuals who are like us, right? Who share similar values as us, right? Who kind of think like us, who, you know, share these same important opinions about things, right? You know, the reason that I married my wife so quickly is because I very much valued communication style and problem solving, right? And she was extremely responsive in her communications with me, right? And when I asked her questions about how she was feeling, she would answer honestly, right? And so I'd ask, hey, we had this date. I wanted to ask how you're feeling. Are you interested in going on another date or not? And if not, it's okay, you know, but I just want to know so that we're on the same page, right? And she responded, and we were on the same page, right? We resonated, right? If you see, you know, like radio waves, right? You know, we see this, right? Resonance is when these waves are, you know, like going up and going up and down, you know, at the same frequency, right? You know, they're in sync, right? And so that's what I felt, right? And so I think that the principle behind this scripture is, in the context of dating within the church and in Utah, is that we are going to, you know, resonate more with people who are like us, right? And I think a lot of us want things that we can't have, right? You know, I always, you know, I may get a new car, but I may want that new fancy Toyota Camry, you know, sports edition, right? Because it just looks a little bit better, right? You know, and I don't have it, right? But I think that once we can, you know, find, you know, I think joy in just being able to have things that are within our reach and that, you know, we do have, right? Having ourselves in places where we are wanted, right? I think it'll change the game, right? I mean, personally, I know that my dating life when I was single changed a lot when I stopped spending time talking to people who could tell weren't interested, right? At first I was offended. I was like, I'm great. What are you talking about? You know, like, excuse me, right? You know, but eventually I was like, you know what? What's going to come of this? You know, like I can, you know, keep trying to text and keep trying to call and do all these things, right? But is it going to amount to anything if she also doesn't want that back, right? And so once it started, you know, moving on faster, right, you know, and kind of, I guess the phrase that comes to mind is it's like separating the wheat and the tares, right? You know, like I mean, I would ask super specific questions like, hey, I'm on Mutual and I'm going on dates, and here's my intentions. I eventually someday, you know, want to get married. I like you for these reasons, and I'd be interested to go on a date with you, right? Some girls thought it was a little bit too forward, right? And I knew that wasn't a problem because I know that wouldn't be compatible.
It's just not your
in a
girl,
relationship, right? Yeah. There's an excellent quote that says, "The problems that you see in relationships are only going to be amplified during marriage." Right. And so if a girl who I'm dating isn't texting me back while we're dating, you know, how's that going to present itself in marriage, right? Is she going to not talk to me when she is upset with me instead of problem solving, right? Is she going to, you know, like not communicate when something's off, right? And again, that's one thing that I absolutely love about my wife is that she communicates to me when she is thinking something or feeling something, right? And then we talk it out, right? And and again, I think I just prioritized that was something that was part of my identity and that I really wanted. And when I found that, it resonated.
I love that.
That's what I'm talking about, Jacob.
That's really good advice, honestly, for our single friends out there. I just wanted to, as we're kind of wrapping up, this has been really fun to talk about like the Provo dating scene and like kind of where things are at right now. But I'm curious, as you've been running your page, obviously Utah Stats, but we know a lot of those people are members of the church. I'm curious, how do you think the results of the surveys you've been doing, how does that reflect the future of church culture?
Yeah. What I have seen, I think, is that a lot of people, I think, tend to take things pretty hard when they are rejected or when their self-worth seems to be in danger, right? I think one thing that is kind of troublesome is that people spend all their time in high school and things and developing an identity, right? And they come to college, right? And then another part of their identity becomes, dating and courting and getting married, right? And so when people are rejected, then that challenges that, right? I mean, dating isn't, like, if you think about it, dating is an incredibly vulnerable thing, right? I feel like especially for men, communicating, hey, I have, emotional interest in you. I am interested in you. I feel this way. Men don't talk about their feelings, probably as much as they should, right? And so when they do, and when things, don't go well, then it hurts, right? I mean, you talked about, like how hard it was when, like you were engaged a little bit, or leading up to your engagement, where you're like, man, I've been through heartbreak, so it's kind of hard, to kind of like, get past that, right? And I think obviously women experience, the same thing in terms of rejection, right? But what I'm seeing is that it is a lot of people are perceiving the situations and either reflecting it on themselves or on others. They're thinking, I'm getting rejected, I'm being told no, therefore either I'm not good enough or this other person is bad for some reason, right? And they don't value the right things and they, whatever, right? Instead of thinking about the other person, thinking about, okay, this person is in school. They probably have so many other people also in their DMs, right? They're stressed about, having to pay rent because they have to work and do school at the same time, right? And they got a lot on their plate. So what could I do as a person to make their lives a little bit easier? How can I navigate this dating scene? Because, again, the world doesn't revolve around, your Friday night. You know what I mean? Right?
Yeah.
There's a quote I wanted to share. Have you ever heard of the book called The Little Prince?
I might have heard of it.
I have not.
By Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. It's very good. It's so what it is, it's this man, he crashed in a desert and had a series of hallucinations as he was out in the desert, right? And then he painted these stories and these things in a book that taught him some lessons, right? And one of the things that he says is that life has taught us that love does not consist in gazing at each other, but in looking outward together in the same direction. There is no comradeship except through union in the same high effort. Even in our age of material well-being, this must be so. Else how should we explain the happiness we feel in sharing our last crust with others in the desert?
Wow.
And so I think what can be helpful as we navigate a dating scene and just as we navigate, this life in general is, seeing people as they should be seen, as people, right? Not as objects, not as your Friday night activity, right? Because again, life exists so that we can look outwards together, with that same effort, right? I think that there's a reason that God has commanded us to have charity, right? Obviously, there is romantic love, but there's also this love of God and love for our fellow men, right? And we're promised in Moroni that if we shall obtain this love, then when he, meaning Christ, shall appear, We shall see him as he is, for we shall be like him. We shall be like him. We will have loved the way that he loved, and we can know that he is God because it is familiar to us. We have done what he has done, right? We are becoming like God as we love people, as we see them as they are, right? The last phrase, the last solo phrase in the play Les Mis, the last thing that Jean Valjean says is to love another person is to see the face of God. And I think that is true. I think that there is a lot of romantic love in this dating scene, but I don't think that there is a lot of charity in this dating scene and in this world in general, I think, right? And that's just what I think is what comes to mind when I think of the future of the church, right? Is how we treat each other and how we are seeing each other. If we're seeing each other as obstacles and as, reasons to be upset, or rather as people who are on their own mortal journey, who have to go to work, who have to come home and pay bills, who have, a family member in the hospital, right? Who have divorced parents, whatever it may be, right? Are we seeing each other as obstacles, or are we seeing each other as people and as fellow human beings in the human family?
Wow. Oh my gosh. There's so many incredible things that you just said, but that is such a beautiful point and reminder. And I mean, I think about if Christ was out here dating, he would not be hating and mad at people who aren't texting him back, or you know what I mean? Like if he went on a date with someone he didn't like, he wasn't going to laugh about him, his friends. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think it's just such a good reminder. And I love it going back to your whole intent behind your page and having these statistics and getting the why behind it. And just remembering that these are people who have different perspectives, different backgrounds, different stories, and just loving them and like just looking at it through the eyes of charity, I think is so great.
It's so true. It's so true. I think that there's a lot of, you're welcome. I think it's easy to paint a sad picture for ourselves, right? And certainly life is hard, right? But I mean, it definitely gets a little bit better when we decide to look up.
Yeah, and I think context. I love how no matter what we talked about, the way you provide context opens your mind. I know, like when you were saying, just how there's romantic love, but there's not charity. Like, dude, it immediately clicked for me because I was that kid that listened to like 90s R&B growing up. It was all about like falling in love, and I think like I was just more in love with the idea of love or the reality of love. And then I know with my fiance now, like I loved her not as a friend, but she had these desires to go through the temple, and I had just gone through the temple, and so I was like her best friend in that regard of being accountable. And in that, the only way that I could obviously help, only way you can help somebody on a covenant path is if you're intentional about your own. And so in that process, I had experienced that, and then that romantic love came like long after we even dated. And this is like the greatest amount of love I've ever felt for somebody. And I'm like, wow, like you made me make sense. I was like, oh my goodness, I was doing it backwards the whole time. And that's the reason why things played out the way that they did. So it's just wild too, just in terms of what we view in just Provo dating and how like, we look at people as obstacles, or like as a Friday night. I'm like, what in the world? Why would people be upset that someone flaked on you? They might be dealing with something that has nothing to do with you. And of course, like things happen in life, but to not take it personal and to focus on becoming the right person rather than finding the right person makes all the difference. So
I think it's so true, right? Love is something that you create over time, right? It isn't, I mean, your engagement isn't the peak of your love for the person. It's the departure, right? It's the start, of this journey, right? I know that after I first got married, I felt, and even during my engagement, I felt a lot of anxiety, right? I have a hard time being like locked into things, right? And so when I was getting married, I was like, so what if it doesn't go good? What if she's not the right person for me, right? Love was something that, my wife and I continue to create, right? I'm more in love with her now than I was on the day I married her, right? And I think as it should be, right? Again, before, I felt some anxiety. I was like, is she really right? I mean, she and I don't have a lot of hobbies, like in common, I'm a little worried about that, right? But as I've seen, like her faith, as I've seen her serve others, as I've gone to the temple with her, as, we've started building this, life and career together, right? Like it's been more firmly cemented in my heart and mind that, she is my eternal companion, and this is something that we can do and will do, right? And so now I frequently, instead of having anxiety, I pray and I'm like, Lord, I love her so much. Please don't take her away from me, right? I have these, these intrusive thoughts of, oh, what if she dies? Then I would lose her. I'd have to start dating again. That would suck, right? And I'd miss her, a lot. She's the one, right? But again, I think before that love was created, with us, right, there was that initial charity, right? She had a love for people, and she had a love for me as a child of God, and she showed me that, respect and integrity of heart, right?
Yeah.
And I showed it back, right? And I think that the dating scene everywhere would change if people acted a little bit more charitable towards each other and communicated that a little bit.
Facts. That's
a mic drop.
Literally.
That's crazy.
So good. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to share with our audience while you're here? I know we didn't get to everything.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I think the last thing that we scratched on a little bit, but I just wanted to make another remark about for advice, right? The common thing that I see is that in the free response section of my surveys, right, a lot of men don't know the cues women are giving off, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of women want men to make a move, but all the men are scared and want the woman to, so that they know that she's interested, right? Uh-huh. And so there's a lot of lack of knowledge here, right? Men are like, I don't know if she's interested, so I'm not going to shoot my shot. And then she's like, I don't know if he's interested because he hasn't shot his shot, right?
Right.
And so, but my success in dating, and I frame success as my quality of life and my experience in it, not on the number of dates or whatever, right? But I think my dating experience improved a lot as I started to ask a little bit about their expectations and their boundaries and their interests, right? So I would preface a date saying, hey, I want to know, what are your boundaries with first dates? Are you okay with this? Are you not okay with this? What are your hard lines? What can I expect, right? And what do you expect, right? And then after the date, right? Hey, how did you feel? Are you okay with, I am interested for these reasons. Are you also interested, right? And if not, that's okay. And I think it's really important to add if you're not interested, it's okay. I would just love to know, right? Because then I feel like a lot of women, again, feel bad saying no over and over and over and over and over again, right? And then a lot of men will get offended and start whatever, right? But again, I think the word communication is such a clickbait term sometimes, right? Communication,
but
right?
There's a reason,
there is a reason, right? My marriage is better because I communicate, right? My dating was better because I communicated up front, and I knew, oh, okay, this girl I'm going on a date with, she's not okay with kissing on the first date. So I'm not even going to think about that. And so I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about the signs. I don't have to worry about anything. I can just focus on knowing her, right? Yeah. And ultimately that is what I think dating is supposed to be, right? It's just knowing people, right? Learning who they are, and then just knowing them.
Oh my gosh, that is such good advice. I hope if you're single, you're taking notes, because this is honestly, it's so true. And even if that communication's a little uncomfortable at first, it's so worth it in the long run. So
saves your emotions for sure.
Uh-huh. Oh, it's so true. It's so true, especially if you treat dating as, not separating, the people from it, right? But genuinely, moving on if someone isn't interested, right? Not to dehumanize people, right? But think, okay, well, I had a good time with this person, but they aren't interested, and that's okay, so I'm not going to waste my time, pursuing them, right?
And that's showing them charity in a way, and that's showing yourself charity too.
Yeah, it is. And there is so much jealousy, I think, too. I think that there's, a lot of, people feeling like they need to be the only one, right? I actually have, if we have time, can I close with a story?
Sure. Yeah.
super fast, right? I went on a date and with a girl my freshman year of high school. I'm sorry, of college. Sorry. It was funny because so after the date, we went to her house, her apartment with her roommates, right? And a part of the date was like a mutual workshop type thing. So we like looked over each other's profiles, gave each other kind of like feedback on like, like what we thought was good, what could like, improve our ability to get more matches.
Oh my, wait, this is on your date?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I asked about it like beforehand and I was like, are you comfortable with it? I know it's a little weird, She's like, yeah, sure, because we had previously talked about our experiences on dating apps, right? And so like it was a shared thing, right?
Yeah.
And so we did that and talked about our experiences, like as a part of the date, right? Amid that date, as I was scrolling through and, showing, right, matches, I found that I had not only matched with her, but her roommate. And not only her roommate, but her other roommate. So I had matched with 2 of this girl's roommates.
The whole apartment.
And 3 out of 6 of them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Wait, no, 4, 5. I don't remember, but yeah, there. And I was like, scrolling through. She's like, oh wait, that's my roommate. Yeah, you just saw her. Like when you walked in the door, and I was like, oh. And I had been talking to them. Like it isn't just matches. I had been talking to these girls, right? Oh my
gosh.
And I was like, yeah, I'm sad this one girl ghosted me. She's like, yeah, that's my roommate. And I was like, oh, right. But my point is that her attitude on the date was incredible, right? Like she was not jealous and she wasn't, like critical of these things, right? But we just talked about it as a shared experience. Like, hey, dating in Utah, am I right? Let's talk about it. Let's joke about it. Like let's just let's exist. Let's exist together, looking forward in the same direction, right?
Yeah.
We weren't against each other, right? We were just 2 people, just on a date, having fun, having a laugh at the awkward situation, right? and I think that was just a really cool thing, right? And I think if there was more of that attitude, then I think there would be a lot less heartbreak. I think there would be a lot less emotion tied into dating, right? Again, I think it just ties back to charity, right? I mean, everything's easier when we love each other, right? Everything's easier when we love each other.
Oh, I love that. What a great note to end on. That's such good advice, and
thank you, Jacob.
Such a cool way that we took this conversation. And thank you for what you're doing with your page, and thank you for being here. Will you tell everyone where they can keep in touch with you?
Yeah, so it's just on Instagram at Utah Stats. I'm actually dropping some new surveys here in a few months. I'm actually doing one that is specifically on Latter-day Saint culture and beliefs and opinions. So stay tuned for that. And then after that, I'm having one on LDS sexuality as well. And so if you guys are interested, please follow and go take the survey because the more data we have, the better stats we can get. So, yeah.
Well, thank you again for being here.
No, thank you. I really appreciate
Batchlor.
it.
Thank you guys. This was fun.
Yeah.
Great.
It was.
Thank you guys for watching. Bye.